right, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Playbook. It's Paul here. Upon first glance, if you are one of our trusty video viewers, you're going to notice that I am solo dolo today. Let me explain that. So, as some of you might understand, especially if you are an agent, agent schedules tend to be very busy and also ever-changing. So, sometimes it's hard to get these scheduled out. And days like today happen, but I wanted to make sure we got an episode out to you guys this week. So what I've done is decided to do a solo episode, obviously, and I've compiled a whole list of things to talk about here. Everything from market conditions to some tips for agents. Really just wanted to make sure there was information in here that could help everybody, because I feel like sometimes our episodes lean towards advice for agents, and sometimes we neglect the people out there that might be listening that are not agents. So I wanted to make sure, as I said, there's something for everyone. So before I get started on that list, a couple things I wanted to go over. I realized that I often do my plugs, as they say, at the end of the episode. So I wanted to get them out of the way up top. I'm hearing a big echo right now. Maybe you are, maybe you're not. In any case. So it's been 36 episodes. Not sure if I said that already. As you can tell, it's been a long day. What I wanted to do is thank everybody who's been listening, watching, etc. so far. Really appreciate you guys. If you've seen the first episode, you know this is kind of a quote-unquote passion project of mine and Joe's. And it's been fun seeing how people receive it, from family and friends to agents at the brokerage to people I've never met before, telling me how much they enjoy it. And we've been able to have guests from New York, Florida, and as recently as last week, Canada. That was pretty cool. Shout out to Brad. So to make my point here, I just wanted to say thanks, and I hope you all keep watching, and we'll keep bringing you some cool stuff. It's been a lot of fun to do. So on a side note there, if you are not already, I would like to implore you, especially if you are an audio listener, to head over to the YouTube channel and subscribe. That is the 54 Realty YouTube page. There's a whole playlist of the podcast episodes themselves. But furthermore, there is a lot of other content on there. So you have, let's say you're in the market to buy a home. There is a ton of what we call coming soon videos. So those are basically video tours of homes that are for sale or were previously for sale. Sorry if you missed your chance there. What else do we have on there? We have a whole playlist of 30-second clips from Joe of real estate tips. That's for home buyers and sellers. A lot of useful advice in there. We have some funny videos from one of our agents, Jordan, who was on a previous episode of the podcast. Shout out to Jordan. And just a ton of other stuff on there that is worth looking at. So I would like to ask you to go ahead and subscribe. Click the bell so you get notified when we upload things. On social media, we've been steadily growing our following. I appreciate all of you who follow us on Facebook, Instagram, so on and so forth. So keep that up. And I think that's all of the shameless plugs there. So why don't we get into the meat of this episode, as they say. So before I get into that, I did want to say I got a lot of this data/news from a website called floridarealtors.org. They have a lot of great news, updates, tips, blogs, whatever you want to call them on there. And they've provided me with the content for this episode, not directly, but just through my own research. So check out that website if you're looking for more of this type of information. And if you actually want the links to the articles I'm referencing, go ahead and check out the description, whether you're on YouTube or audio. And I should be putting them all there for you. So let's jump right into it. I think the best way to start is talking about something that affects everybody, from agents to buyers to sellers to just curious individuals like myself. And that, of course, is the tried and true topic of the conditions of the real estate market. So this is what I'll call a hot button issue. Everybody has a different take on it. It affects you differently depending on who you are. You probably heard me talk about this last week with Brad. I'm a renter currently, not ideal, I'll say. However, I'm looking to buy my first home as soon as I can. However, my generation and even folks that are a bit older than myself are intimidated by the market conditions. I mean, you have an intense seller's market, among other things, inflation causing some deficiencies, we'll say, in our bank accounts. all these things together basically create the perfect storm for an anxiety attack about, can I buy a home? So I wanted to approach it from that angle here, if you will. So there is some recent news in regards to the market. Let's start with the Fed, that is the Federal Reserve, announced, I want to say Wednesday, a 0.5 point raise to the federal fund rate. The last raise to the federal fund rate we had was, I wanted to say, it says here 0.25 point, and that was in March. So more are anticipated. However, this is the most recent development. So some people are projecting, when I say some people, I do mean experts, are projecting that this may stabilize the market, at least to a certain degree. And I apologize if you hear any background noise. My coworkers are having a great day as well. So yes, they're predicting that this will stabilize the market, at least to a certain degree. And I believe Brad actually did touch on that last week as well. He's just getting a bunch of shout outs here. So you're probably wondering, how will this stabilize the market, this rate increase? Well, according to Freddie Mac, the average 30-year mortgage rate is sitting at about 5.27% right now. So that's actually the highest since the year 2009. And I know you're thinking, Paul, why is that good? And or why should I care? Well, as the the average mortgage rate is sitting at an all-time high, or rather a recent time high, what this is doing is shrinking the pool for potential buyers. And I'll get to the good news for buyers in a minute here, but let me just approach it this way first. So as the buyer pool shrinks due to the higher rates and people are getting edged out, what this is doing is relieving demand, especially amongst entry-level or first-time home buyers, as I said. So that buyer pool is shrinking. Obviously, demand shrinks with it. You're going to see a little bit less competition amongst, just the buyer pool at large. So we might see, and I think this is going to be a gradual sort of change, but we're going to see probably still what they call bidding wars, but perhaps less than the 30, 20, however many offers we're used to seeing right now, which hopefully will be favorable to many. So I like to start with the semi-good news there and then bring you into the semi-bad news, which is that the National Association of Realtors is still estimating that a home purchase is 55% more expensive than it was a year ago. So I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer here, but what I mean to say by that is that this is going to be a gradual change, like I said. So while we are still in this region of homes being expensive and unattainable for some, hopefully this will be gradually changing. So I know this is probably relieving news for experienced home buyers, people that are maybe, as they say, trading up from an old home. But for many, like myself, as I said up top, this is actually perceived as bad news. I know when I saw this, I'm just like, rates are going up. They're just going to keep going up. Where the heck is the relief? So an important thing to think of is that these things are cyclical. Eventually, this will come back around. The best thing you can do, and this is, just personal advice, not necessarily, don't take this as financial advice. Best thing you can do really right now, if you're not in that pool of people that can afford to get into a home, just save your money, keep working, do what you're doing. I know renting is, as people say, throwing money into a pit, but just do the best you can with what you've got. And that's a new segment I like to call Dreary Advice from Your Good Friend Paul. However, I would hope that your outlook is optimistic. And as always, the best way to ensure that you can get in a good home, especially in trying times like this, as the cliche goes, you can't go it alone. So find a good agent who has your best interest in mind, and your options will be a whole lot easier. So segue into some relief here for you, for home buyers specifically. So a lot of people don't know this, myself included, at least until I started working here. When you think of buying a home, what do you think is the most stressful thing? Well, the whole process is probably pretty stressful, but leading up to it, you think of the immediate expenses, right? And the most obvious immediate expense for most people is probably the down payment. I know that's what I think of when I think of saving for a home. So while this can be intimidating to some, the relief, as I said, is in the form of down payment assistance. So this is an article again from floridarealtors.org, shout out. And they basically captioned this article, or titled rather, there's more options for down payment assistance out there than most folks realize. I actually didn't write this certain statistic down, but if I remember correctly from my research, about 3% of people are using, or home buyers rather, are using down payment assistance programs. So you have to wonder, in the amount of people that have bought homes in the past year, 2 years, 3 years, how many people missed out on this just not knowing that it existed. So I wanted to offer you some details in regards to that. So the first thing, and I want to go state specific here, because as you know, we are in Florida. You might see this little poster behind me. It's a little bit out of frame, but in case you didn't know, 54 Realty, myself, and the podcast, we're all based in Tampa, Florida. So this program, or organization rather, is called the Florida Housing Finance Corporation. So the Florida Housing Finance Corporation can actually offer you up to $10,000 in down payment assistance. So they have a couple different programs for this. You can obviously go on their website, which I'll link, and find which one is best for you. However, $10,000 is a sizable sum, especially if you have some money of your own to supplement that. So, more and more people are taking advantage of this program, specifically the FHFC. Say that 3 times fast. In fact, they are saying that, quote, business is booming. So hopefully more people continue to take advantage of that. However, every state does have, and I do mean every state, has more programs than just programs like this. So I believe, and again, quoting things that I don't have written down. However, there are some states with hundreds of these types of programs. It did not quote anything for Florida specifically, but I'm sure there's plenty out there. So, these are offered by things like governments, nonprofits, your employer even sometimes might offer you a down payment assistance program. So this is not the only benefit available from these programs. So a lot of these places are affordable housing, I guess you could say, representatives or agencies. And so they kind of want to cover the full spectrum of things that, as I said, intimidate people when they're buying their first home. So while I did mention the down payment assistance, they can also help with things like grants, mortgages, or loans with no/low interest rates. That's a huge plus. And a lot of these places as well have special packages for veterans, first responders, educators, folks with disabling conditions, so on and so forth. There's a lot of different things that can qualify you for programs like this. So I wanted to get that information out there because, as I said, not a lot of people are taking advantage of it, even though the numbers are ticking up, and this could seriously help you get into a home. Now, as always, we do like to gear some of this podcast towards our agents out there. So how can this help you, agents? Well, in my book, at least from what I've learned on this podcast and just working here, if something helps your buyer, it's helping you, because ultimately your goal is to close that transaction. No? Now, that being said, if you are an agent, I would recommend going to this website, downpaymentresource.com, sharing that with your buyers, because if they are in a unique situation where A, they need to get into a home, and B, they can't necessarily afford it, or they're having some difficulties, whatever it might be, there's a ton of resources on this website that can help with things like down payment, loans, etc., as I stated. So, as we covered, that is good news for buyers and agents. There's some good news for sellers too. So I'm really just, the happy news guy today, I suppose. So the good news for sellers, a separate article here from floridarealtors.org, is that apparently, and this is news to me, spring and summer are the best times to sell a home. Now you're probably wondering, why is that, Paul? Is that because the sun is shining, people are in a good mood? No, as a matter of fact, this is based on data. My favorite thing in the world. Just kidding. So this study actually was conducted over the last 11 years. And the researchers basically looked at historical data from home sales. And what they discovered, or concluded rather, is that May, June, and July, aka the spring, summer months, are actually the best time to sell your home. Why is that, you might ask? Well, these months specifically offer, on average, a yield of 10% above market value to sellers. So I'm sure there are a variety of factors that play into this. They did not go into detail about what those may be. However, I wanted to share this with you because if you've been on the fence about selling your home, well, guess what? Now is in fact the best time. To be more specific, in this study, they further elaborated that May is actually the best month of the 3. with several days in there over their historical data that they looked at being the best days to sell your home to get the most bang for your buck, I guess is the best way to put that. So if you've been waiting, now is a good time to act. Call an agent, get your home listed, get it sold. And as you know, inventory is low, so we can surely use a lot more homes on the market. So talking about the current state of things, how things are changing, the next thing I want to cover is something that's actually been in play for quite some time. In fact, probably since the beginning of the pandemic in 2020. However, some people just aren't aware of these things, and this is going to, favor to my agents here. This is some news for you, or not necessarily news, but tips for you. So as I'm sure you know, a lot of people are working from home these days. A lot of companies implemented this at the start of the pandemic to make sure they can keep their operations going, and have continued to do so as they realize that, employees like this sort of thing. It's not really affecting productivity. In fact, in some cases, it's increasing productivity. So what does this mean for real estate? So a lot of people, when they're looking for a home, let's say they do have a job that enables them to work from home either full-time or a couple days a week, are looking for, of course, a space to actually complete this work. So when they're buying a home, they're looking for, say, an office or a living room or even an outdoor space if you like the sunshine like I do, even though you couldn't tell it by looking at me. So people are looking for these sorts of things when they're looking to buy a home. So that's something for agents to keep in mind. You definitely want to give your buyers options when they're looking for these homes. Ask them these kinds of questions. Are you looking for a space to work from home? This is important because, you're going to spend a lot of time there. Not only are you living there, you're working there. And me personally, if I do work from home, I like to keep my, workspace separate from my living space. So having those additional areas is always nice. Furthermore, let's see. So iBuyers are huge, right? If you don't know what an iBuyer is, and I'm still kind of navigating it myself, it's basically programs you may have heard of like Open Door. I think Zillow was doing this at one point. They've increased in popularity a lot, where basically they circumnavigate the traditional home selling process. They bring you offers, so on and so forth. It's a lot more convenient option for some people to sell their homes. It doesn't necessarily always yield the highest return. However, it's very popular just based on its convenience, quick accessibility, safety for some people in terms of, COVID. And another shameless plug for you here, 54 Realty, our brokerage, does actually have a program like this. It's called Bring All Offers. If you are interested in something like this, go to bringalloffers.com. I believe there's a form there where you can input your email, and there's probably a phone number as well. In fact, if you call that phone number, my voice is the voicemail message, fun fact. So check that out if you're interested in these types of programs. And that's a little tip for those of you looking to sell your home. And to round out my point here about how working from home, and I guess the pandemic at large, has been affecting real estate, this is something that I think is common knowledge for most agents at this point. But if you aren't utilizing all of the digital services that are available to you, you're probably missing out on money, clients. And even if you do have those clients, you're probably missing out on that satisfaction that they're getting from the transaction with you. So what do I mean when I say, digital services? Well, the most popular one, as far as I know, at least, is virtual tours. So, that's where you go to a home, you either record a video, or let's say you FaceTime the client, and you give them a tour of the home. This doesn't require the client to be present, which is good, as we said, for these pandemic-y times. And this is also good for people who are just busy. You have a buyer who's busy and simply doesn't have time to see a home. You can offer this to them. You're going to be showing the home either way, so you might as well offer that up. And these are becoming increasingly popular. We do tons of those here. In fact, if you saw my interview with Horace, he's doing some things like that as well, under the showing agent model. So you really want to use things like this. There are some others that you can research, and that will really just maximize your presence in the digital space. You're offering more things to your clients to increase, like I said, that satisfaction. And why not do it? So speaking of technology, moving on to another article here. So video marketing, oh boy, is that my specialty. As I'm sure you've seen, if you follow this podcast, if you follow 54 Realty on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, whatever, I'm on a ton of video stuff. It's something I really enjoy, but I'm not an agent myself. So how does this benefit agents? Well, I think I'm the perfect person to tell you all about this. So number one, studies show that 4.62 billion people are on social media. That is a lot of people. I think you might agree. However, and I don't have the statistic written down, but I did host a training on this for the brokerage some months ago. And I think the statistic was only like 54% of agents are active on social media. So social media, good place to start, but let's get into the meat of what I'm talking about here, which is video marketing. Well, this article from floridarealtors.org states that listings with videos actually get 403% more inquiries. That is a high percentage. And I think anyone who is trying to provide their client the best service to get the home sold will agree that is a number you cannot ignore. So if you have a photographer or videographer, or if you just want to do this yourself, create a video for the home, whether it be a tour or just highlighting some prominent features, or even some of our agents will just do a little video of themselves walking around the listing saying, hey, don't you love this dock, or don't you love this kitchen? Could be something as short and simple as that. People are going to notice and they are going to be interested. In my opinion, it's just a little bit better than a still image. You can get a feel for the home. You can see angles that you might not necessarily see in a photo, so on and so forth. But that's just for listings. So what else is out there in terms of video marketing? Well, there is the podcast, of course. So agents, whether or not you work for our brokerage, there's many podcasts out there that you can try and get yourself on to promote yourself, your business, so on and so forth. That's just one option. There's also just creating a YouTube channel of your own. You can give real estate tips and advice like Joe does. You can do what Jordan does, make quirky little skits that have something to do with the real estate. That way people keep you front of mind as a real estate agent, and people just enjoy watching those videos in general, whether or not they're interested in real estate. What are these things doing when they work together? And before I get into that, let me mention that TikTok is a very valid option as well. So what are these things doing when they work together? Well, what they're doing is keeping you, as I said, at the front of mind of people who are looking for a real estate agent. When I look for an agent, I'm going to think, who do I know, right? Before I start looking online. At least most people think that way. And when I'm constantly seeing videos from people, whether it be TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, like I said, you will be front of mind. You will probably be one of the first people that I think of. And I'm going to think, hey, Jordan's really funny, or Amy obviously really works hard for her clients. She's always showing off their listings, or whoever it might be, whatever you might be doing with video. It's super easy. And, you're missing out on a lot of that, as I'll say, brand visibility if you're not taking advantage of this. That being said, I know it can be like a semi-intimidating thing for people to get into. So what I'd like to share is 2 tidbits of advice from myself and from Amy, who was on a previous episode. Her name's Amy Kinchlow. She's big on the video marketing. So from myself, I can tell you that, I have experience in video even before I started doing this podcast. I've been recording things for as long as I can remember, which is just a signal rather of my generation, I think. But it's something I've always really enjoyed. So once I started doing this, I got really into the planning aspect of it. Making sure I have a script and these are the exact words I want to say. And if I don't say this, it's not going to come off right, that sort of thing. Well, that kind of leads you to create more errors for yourself when you're actually recording that video. So my point there being, I think when people overthink it leads to you creating a more stiff sounding video, something that just doesn't feel real to people. And that's not going to translate as well when people are watching that. So what I would encourage you to do is think of a loose idea, or as I do for these podcasts when I have a guest, think of loose questions, not necessarily in an order, and turn the camera on, start recording. You know what you're talking about, at least I hope. And so these things will come naturally to you, and you will just go on and on and on, and you'll have yourself a great video by the end. Now, Amy's piece of advice is, to simplify it, I suppose, is just do it. It's very easy for us to criticize, maybe the way we look on camera or the way we sound on video, so on and so forth. It's really easy to get caught in that feedback loop. But, and I'm quoting here, by the way, this is not from my brain. And once again, I can't remember if this is Amy precisely, but somebody somewhere in our video training said, if somebody sees your video and thinks, I don't like the way that person looks, or I don't like the way they talk, so on and so forth, that's not somebody you really want to work with anyway. So put yourself out there, create some videos. It's going to help your brand, going to help your business, so on, so forth. I think that's about the 80th time I've said that in this podcast, but there I go, being hard on myself. I should take my own advice, huh? So video marketing, guys, that about sums it up. There's one more thing I wanted to cover before we shut this podcast off. So the famous income stream for many agents, and that is referrals. How can I get more referrals? God, how can I get more referrals? I think a lot of agents spend a lot of their time trying different techniques, and they might often feel like they're being annoying to clients or whoever. So this article from floridarealtors.org is actually about how to get referrals without being annoying, which I thought was a rather attention-grabbing headline. So the first thing they recommend is obviously to offer superior customer service. Because if you're working with a client and they don't have a good experience, there's not a chance they will refer you. So that's step one, obviously. Step two there is to ask for referrals early on in the transaction. So what I mean by this is mention it up top and, maybe keep bringing it up. That way it's front of mind for them, just as, the video marketing thing we were just talking about. So a tip I have there is actually from our director of sales, Tim, who is on an earlier episode. He says this in his sales mastery training, which is make it a transactional thing. Say, hey, I know I've provided you, or I hope I've provided you with excellent customer service. I would like to ask you for a simple thing in return. If you know somebody that's looking to buy or sell a home, just refer them my name. And keep reminding them of this so that, in fact, when they do have that referral available for you, they remember that precise conversation and you're much more likely to actually get a referral. Some other things you can do: share testimonials, reviews to your website, your social media, so people can see that other clients had a great experience with you. So whether or not that past client is directly referring this person is seeing that this past client had a good experience, and that's a referral in a way, and that's something that's super easy to do. And on that note, be sure that you're asking past clients for reviews, for testimonials. This is a super easy thing to do. Assuming they had a good experience, most people are really happy to write you a review, and it can help you out a lot. And last but not least, this is something I think any agent should be doing, regardless of if they're trying to get referrals. Keep your database and your CRM up to date, keep it accurate, leave notes in there, and, follow up with people. Email them once a year, send them a mailer every couple of months, just saying, hey, how you doing? Here's some market data. Hey, here's what a home like yours might sell for based on comparable sales in the area. Just send them a thank you note. If they're a past client and you're trying to get a referral, as I said, just send them a mailer and say, hey, I wanted to thank you again for your business. It's that time of year where a lot of people are looking to sell. If you have anybody that is, send them my way, that sort of thing. Just a nice thing that lets them know you're thinking of them. Something we also do here is send what they call house anniversary mailers. So, on the 1-year anniversary of a client's purchase, send them a congratulations or a hey, happy anniversary, maybe with a gift card or something like that. It's super simple, cost-effective way that you can keep your name at the front of people's minds, as I've said 100 times, and, get more referrals, people. Well, I think that about sums up everything I had today. Looks like I'm sitting right around the 30-minute mark, so that's kind of perfect. I didn't think I would have that much to say, but shout out to me, I guess. Pat on the back. So guys, next week we will be back to having guests. I have some fun ones lined up for you. So expect to see me in a slightly different environment. If you watch this all the way through, I appreciate it. I know sometimes solo podcasts can be less interesting to listen to, but like I said, wanted to make sure that y'all had something to listen to this week or watch, whatever it is you do. So as I said up top, if you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, etc. Spotify and Apple Podcasts, if you could, follow the podcast and or leave a 5-star review. If you're on Apple, that would be greatly appreciated. Keep up with us on social media at the Real Estate Playbook on everything. Ladies and gentlemen, folks, friends, family, foes even, I want to wish you a happy weekend wherever you are, and we will see you next week. Thanks again.